So thank you for joining us tonight, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes. Now, District 48, can you let our listeners know? We have a lot of listeners. We have about, it looks like in the queue, probably about 600 people. It's an amazing number. Logged in, and we want to give them some information. And those are just people listening that have accounts with Blog Talk Radio. But there's a lot more out there listening. So can you tell us where District 48 actually is, and the towns and cities, if you will?
Sure, glad to. District 48 is in the very southwest corner of Hennepin County. It's a suburb of Minneapolis. I grew up in Minneapolis, but have lived out here. My family moved out to Bloomington when I was in high school. I've lived out here for most of my life. But it is Eden Prairie. It's where I lived, and my district also includes part of Minnetonka.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And you are the Senate Minority Leader, Republican for the GOP. And one of the things we want to get into here, I've been promoting this, and I've talked with you, met with you, and I am letting our listeners know that yes, we do have friends in the Republican Party, elected officials that will give us straight talk and give us information that some of us are not getting, and the information we do get is kind of skewed to one side, if you know what I'm saying. So with that said, I know this legislative session was kind of tough, and there's some rumors out there, some myths, I guess, that there might be a special session. But one of the things that we're interested in and want to pinpoint is some of the money that went to this disparity package. First it started out $100 million, and it was $35 million, and then some of us found out that an agency...
It started out $100 million, $75 million.
Yes.
Then the NAACP and others maintained that they had a commitment and they were going to receive $33 million. And now we're hearing $36 million, but we can only account for about $4.5 million that is been entrusted or invested with an organization that leader in conversations. There's been at least, and I think it's important that the senator and his colleagues know that this is going on. There have been at least 7 meetings with the Pacific organization under a individual who indicates that he speaks and knows the African American community better than it knows itself. And just in the last couple of days, Senator, he has indicated that the monies, particularly any monies for youth employment, investment in youth, and et cetera, may not be forthcoming until sometime in the late fall, if then, and that he and his organization will be making the determination of who is eligible, qualified, politically connected. Maybe the latter is the best. And so it is creating a significant amount of tension because people are trying to make us believe that the Republicans somewhere or another blocked any meaningful and compassionate legislation that would have allowed us to address some of these problems. And as a long-time observer, and et cetera, I know that not to be true, but I don't think this evening, for the purpose of this program, that anyone thought that we'd be able to get a person of your stature to clear the air.
Well, first I would say that it's news to me that and as far as I can assure you, there's been no effort by Republicans to do anything to block resources. I know, Don, when you came and visited with us a couple of times recently, we talked about this a little bit, and I know you had expressed some concerns about...
Now, this is Ron. This is Ron.
Sorry. Sorry, Ron.
That's okay. Our voices are we're almost like brothers.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I apologize. But, no, we had talked a little bit about the proposal, and I know there was some concern expressed on your part that these funds may not be going to the right place, or they might not be used the most effective way. And when we met and talked about this, and from our side, we want to make sure that any funds, that they are going to the places that are needed and that they're being used in ways that are actually going to help people in the community. So that's been our interest, our hope, and we want to work with you to find the most effective ways to do that. But I can assure you there's not been any effort by anybody in the Republican Party to try to block or prevent any funds from being made available. And so that's news to me. I know sometimes when grants are made, there may be a time lag between as they disperse the funds to find the right place to put them, but I don't know the specifics of any particular grant. I'd have to do some research into that, but there hasn't been any move to block any funding.
Yeah, and this is Ron Edwards. I'm glad to hear that because that was my thinking, and that was what my examination had concluded. And I thought it was rather unfair, particularly with the level of tension that is now unfortunately gripping our city and particularly our community, that there was an attempt to create some kind of straw man, if you will. When, I have to say this, is when, in fact, the organization that have been identified as recipients of this particular money have very strong ties to the Democratic Party. And I just think that we just need to be fair, balanced, and honest about what's really going on. And let me just say this, gentlemen, Mr. Allen and Senator, it is coming at a very, very difficult time because young men and young organizations are submitting gentlemen proposals, something that, the average person says that young individuals maybe with backgrounds in gang activity or et cetera don't have that kind of intellect and et cetera. Well, that's just not true. And I've been very disturbed as a long-time observer, and I've been in this community since 1945. And when I see this kind of gamesmanship being played, and I see dreams being shattered, if you will, I just don't think it's in the best interest of continuity, political, moral, otherwise. So that's part of where I'm coming from tonight. And again, already you have set a part of the record straight. Mr. Allen, back to you.
Yeah, this is Don Allen again. Thank you, Senator Hann, because what we have is what we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, where we have VFL operatives in a room telling the African-American community that the Republicans have blocked this or that or whatever. And one of the things that is troubling me right now is that it seems each legislative session there are 2 senators and a state representative who end up being celebrated for getting this money in, but yet, I guess I want to say that black people are naturally conservative, okay? We save our money, we decide what we want to buy, we make good choices overall, and we work real hard, and what happens is, we've been watching a lot of community members. I have over 40 people on the phone line, and please be patient with me. We'll get to some of you, not all of you, but I appreciate you calling, and some of those are listening in the queue. But what we have here, I'm going to continue, is a repeat performance of what we had last year with, and the year before with the CSI money. We have this year where Senator Champion and Senator Hayden have manipulated, used the system at hand to get some more money. And we know as people that have been covering this and following this for years that, certain people in the community are going to be taken care of. Certain agencies in the community are going to be taken care of. And one of our goals is having you on tonight is to make sure that people get the correct story, the right amount, and understand that the Republicans are not blocking anything, as you just told Mr. Edwards so elegantly, and that the Republicans do support, a common sense approach to problem solving in our community. So with that said, is there going to be a way this time to possibly track what's going on with the powers that be? Like Mr. Edwards has stated that emerges on this list in print, Inc. for $4.2 million. We know that the mayor's husband, Mr. Gary Cunningham, respectfully, works for MEDIA, Minneapolis Economic Development Agency, received a little bit over $2 million, and people in the community are raising red flags. And so what we're asking, and I don't represent the whole community, actually, it would take a bunch of us to represent the whole community, but we want to know, is there going to be, we don't want to be in this place next time, this time next year. Is there going to be something that we will find out, reported about where this money went, what the effect it had, and the success?
Don, let's do this with the senator. Let's ask Jim, because he was there. He was in the chambers, if you will. He was in the conference rooms and the caucuses and et cetera. Senator, can you give me your observations starting on March 8th with respect to all the discussion was going on about a diversity, equity, and et cetera? Could you just walk us through that process?
Well, certainly wasn't involved in all the conversations personally, but there was an effort to a proposal made by the senators you mentioned to find some funding and use it to address some of the disparity issues in Minneapolis. And I think there is broad support to try to do what we can to provide help. I think the concern that I have, and it reflects the conversation that we had in the Capitol a few weeks ago, that when we make these grants, they should not be used for political purposes, but that they should be used to make a difference. And that is really the challenge. And Don, you were just asking if there was going to be an effort to try to make sure there's clear accountability. And my answer is yes. We are involved in an election. We are hoping, and we believe that we will be in the majority next session. And even if we're not, we are going to ask for some accountability and clear understanding of what those monies have been used for, because there is a great desire that we provide the resources that are needed, that those resources are actually used effectively. One of the conversations that we did have, I know, for example, is discussions about what we can do to try to strengthen the education experience of a lot of students in Minneapolis, North Minneapolis, and I think that is a huge challenge. And as you probably know, it's been an issue for a long, long time that we haven't been making a lot of headway. And I think that in my view, is a major focus. But there also is a need to make sure that there are opportunities for economic advancement. We have to be able to make sure that the funds that we have are really helping people that are making a difference. And I share completely your desire to make sure that happens and that these funds are not used just to support or reinforce any political efforts that people may have. And there's always, I think, some danger of that, and we need to have accountability, and we need to make sure that the monies are spent wisely. It's the public's money, after all, and we have an obligation and a duty to do the best we can to make sure that happens. So that's my commitment to you, that we're going to do all we can to ask for and get some clear explanations of what purposes the monies have been used for, and that they're actually helping the people who need help. And we're very interested in doing that, and I'm hoping that we will see a good result. If not, then we're going to have to make some adjustments. I think our commitment is to make sure that those funds are used in the right way.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Chair. Go ahead. We do have a couple callers with questions that have been screened by the engineer, and I'd like to maybe take one now, if that's okay with you.
Let's do that, and why don't we make sure that we respect and accommodate the schedule of the senator.
Yes.
And receive some kind of signal from him on how long he feels he can be with us. But let's get those callers in. Please identify yourselves.
Miss Angela Edwards, you're live on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Let me just make a disclaimer. Let me make a disclaimer at this point. A namesake, but there's no relationship between I and the caller. We just happen to be individuals with the same last name. Welcome. Go ahead. What's your question?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I really don't have much of a question. I do have a lot of statements to make. As I said, my name is Angela Edwards. I would like to thank Senator Hann for coming in and being able to, Senator Hann, being able to clear the air on things as far as the funding in Minneapolis, because it is a lot of tension and chaos that really shouldn't even be. Senator, I was interested to let you know that a lot of what's going on in our community is based upon starting off with the funding and the fact that so many organizations is claiming to provide so many services, but at the same time, when the clients are going to seek help, there's no help. They turn you around. They say, oh, we don't have bus cards. We don't have this and we don't have that. Back to piggyback on your conversation, we're not going to say, hopefully, that we create change for next time. We need to say there's an emergency in the streets of Minneapolis. Our kids are dying because there are no services that's being brought forward truthfully through these proposals. Now, that it gives us all the blame. We're all responsible for the killing. We're all responsible for the poverty, the lack of concern. We're all responsible, and I feel like if we don't pull it together as far as who's getting the funding, where are the services, who's in charge of making sure that organizations is doing what they claiming, then we're lost. This is getting off the chain as far as our kids. I'll give you an example. On yesterday, I took my nephew to Emerge to look for a sonogram.
How old is your nephew? What's the age of your nephew?
He's 14 years old. He wanted a job, so I took him to Emerge. Emerge told me, well, ma'am, there's no job where we filled the positions, and that's just that. Well, go over to the YMCA. So I left. I went over to the YMCA. They told me the same thing. So I went from there to Camel J. They almost told me the same thing. So I just got so stressed out, and they came up with, oh, go to the Park Center. The Park Center did create him a job because they seen the distress and the frustration that he's 14. Do you want him to be a victim? Do you want him with a gun? Are you serious? If we can count bullets every day and see our kids being killed and see our kids out here going to jail for incarceration, kids killing kids, all of this got to stop, because it's everybody who's involved in deceiving these dollars, claiming to give these services. We are all killing ourselves. We are killing our kids, we're killing our community, and we're killing each other's organization. My organization is Education Explosion, and Education Explosion has put more than 168 people in GED/college. Mind you, every time I reach out to one of the organizations who do get the money, they tell me, ma'am, we don't have anything we can give you for outreach. Ma'am, we refer our people to go to the Department of Ed. Ma'am, just keep giving us the referral. You know what, Senator Hann? I cannot sit and allow all this corruption that's starting over at your legislator and ending up in the community, that's ending up in our morgue. My kids dying, these are all of our kids. This is our community. We need to take it back. And the reason why it's gone away is because of the so-called leadership. We need the think tank in place so that accountability is there. Therefore, services are being rendered. An outcome will happen. We need to be able to monitor what is happening in our community.
Angela. We appreciate that. We have other people waiting. Appreciate your observations and your activities. Mr. Allen?
Yes, and I appreciate that, Angela. I know Angela went through a lot yesterday, and she called in and told me about it. And we have a friend of the show, Mr. Jamar Nelson. Mr. Nelson, go ahead, please. Hello, Mr. Nelson. You're live on the air. Okay, he must have hung up. That's okay.
All right. Let's move to the questions for our guest because he is extremely important in this process. Senator, can you give us an indication of what the reporting process will be? Because I know in some cases, as it pertains to the allocation, there are different departments of state that have a certain role with the distribution of the monies. What is the expectation of the legislature, and particularly the House, on how they're going to be able to assess as this is anything being done the right way?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to know is where the monies have been dispersed, who has received those monies, and to make sure that there's clear plans and that those plans are understood. And I think then there needs to be a review of what has happened to those monies. And there are different mechanisms that can be used. There are
Are you waiting to talk to the host or ask the senator a question?
Did we lose the senator there? Is he still with us?
He's still with us.
We have to move on if we doesn't call it. Senator, continue if you wish.
Sure, but there are some other things that we need to do. I agree with you. We do have a legislative auditor that is a nonpartisan function, very highly respected. That person has a number of staff, and they're charged with making sure that monies that the legislature allocates are used in the appropriate way. And that has been one of my thoughts after our meeting, is that we may need to get the legislative auditor to do a audit of the monies and to make a report. And those have been very useful in the past to help point out things that maybe are not happening the way they need to, and it has given the legislature clear direction on what needs to be changed.
Senator, let me ask this question again, Ron Edwards.
Yes.
If you could walk us through, because there was a lot of touting and publicity in our newspapers and et cetera. What was the real story behind the request by the NAACP, in which at one point in time their leadership indicated that they were in line and online to receive upwards of $33 million? I mean, what happened with that, to the best of your knowledge, sir?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there was, I think it was about $35 million that was set aside or appropriated for various programs. I'm not sure at this point if I know exactly how much is being allocated to each of different organizations. I know many times when ideas are first introduced, people make a presentation or they bring a bill and ask for certain amounts of money. It's unusual that those grants or those funds are appropriated in exactly the amounts they're first asked for. And in many cases, it depends on the capacity of organizations to use it and on whatever funds are available. So in the course of the conversations, I think the original request probably got pared down a little bit, but I don't know off the top of my head exactly how much was being allocated to each of the organizations. I know there was more than one, and I think that to me is the question for the legislature next year, is to look at where those monies were dispersed and what exactly those funds were used for, and make sure that, as I said before, that those funds are being targeted and used in the ways that they were intended, and they're not being used just to make political friends or to do things that may not really meet the needs of the community. And I really appreciated Angela's comments. I can tell just from her comments that she is very passionate about what is happening in your community, and we want to find out what is the best way to provide effective help or resources to make sure that those things don't continue. And we're, I I can assure you that we're highly committed to doing that, and I don't pretend to know all the answers. And it's one of the things I hope as we go forward that you and others will continue to work with us and help us to understand what is an effective way to use these funds and that they are used in the appropriate fashion.
All right. Mr. Allen, the Senator's been with us, I think, certainly an appropriate time. We don't want to wear out our welcome and et cetera.
Yes,
why don't you begin to wrap it? Any specific questions you have, Mr. Allen?
Yeah, I just have one more question. In a proposal, Senator Hann, I saw for the NAACP, which Mr. Evers was just talking about, were they allocated the $1 million that they asked for to monitor under 16C?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll be honest with you. I'll have to look and see if I can find that out and let you know when I get that answer.
Sir, could you do that? We would certainly appreciate it. It's important.
Yes, I will. I will in the next couple of days. I'll get a clear. I'll get a clear explanation of what funds were allocated to which organizations, how much, and for what purpose. I'll try to get you a summary of that, and I have your contact information. I'll get that to you, and I just want to thank you for inviting me.
Senator, thank you, Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you very much, Senator Hann, for joining us. We hope you come back, and we truly support what you're doing there at the state legislature. And I appreciate all the calls that called in, and sorry to get to you, but we have a lot more. Again, Senator Hann, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I'll be glad to join you anytime.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. Allen, we've gotten some, if there are some calls holding, we want to get to them. We've gotten a little bit better clarification on what we were hearing. It doesn't seem that there's the kind of clarity, if you will, that we would kind of think that we should have based on what we've been told by other sources. But we know it'll all work itself out. We just hope, though, that there is a sincere and effective movement, because I am very much aware that there are groups of young men and women who have submitted proposals and et cetera, and are asking questions of some of these organizations. And the one that continues to be in the forefront is the organization known as Emerge. There's some real concern with respect to the sensitivity of that organization to understand what's really going on out here.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Mr. Edwards. We had the caller earlier, Ms.